Good morning, Cardinals fans. Welcome into the Monday Morning Scramble. Lisa Matthews here with you, Kyle Odegard, Jody Jackson, Zach Galia. We are here to talk about a Cardinals victory. They get the win in Cincinnati, 26, yes, let's cheers to that, 26-23. Nonetheless, in a thrilling fashion. Kyle, you get the first bite here. What was just something that stood out to you in this Cardinals win?
Obviously, the win was a long time coming, and to me, not only getting the win, but I thought it looked really good, especially when you talk about the offensive side of the ball. More than 500 total yards in a game, which no matter who you're playing, that's not easy to do in the NFL. I realize the Cincinnati defense isn't fantastic, but to consistently move the ball that well, for Kyler Murray to play so well, I think very encouraging, knowing that you have a lot of youth on offense and it seems to be coming together nicely.
There were obviously some great moments. Some bad moments, but a win is a win, right, at this point?
Yeah, and speaking of win, I thought there were going to be victory donuts here this morning.
I
mean,
Who's in charge of that, Zach?
But,
That's probably my fault,
yeah, come on, Zach.
Sorry.
I loved what you said, Kyle. I mean, at 500 yards, amazing. Kyler did his thing. 3 players with over 60 yards rushing, so that kind of showed. David Johnson was running hard. Chase Edmonds added that other, kind of layer to it. And then defensively, they came out, and you just thought, man, the Bengals were running the ball right through the middle of that defense when they only gave up a field goal there, and they kind of turned it around after that. They didn't start well, they didn't end well, but what the defense did in the middle was good enough to help this team win, Zach.
Yeah, it was kind of, that breakfast casserole where you don't want the first bite because it's a little too hot, and that was kind of the defense at the beginning.
once you get in there.
And you don't want the last bite because it's just kind of gross
cold,
at the end. So,
yeah.
but everything in the middle, just like Jody said, was really solid from the defense. Clip that we put on Twitter the other day was kind of Kyler reacting to the field goal at the end, just his kind of relief that it's like, we got one, like a couple claps, and it was kind of like we got past that first hurdle, and it's time to keep moving.
And really just build off of it. And I can go back to the fourth quarter. I believe it was like 7 minutes left. Chase Edmonds has just scored his 37-yard rushing touchdown. You're like, okay, commanding 23-9, and then you just saw things just crumble before your eyes, and I really just couldn't believe it at that point because they had done such a great job defensively, just putting a stop to Mixon. I think he had 60 yards rushing in that first drive, and then really the run defense buckled down. But at that point,
I mean, I think it hurt that they lost Tremaine Brock there, and unfortunately, because you're right, when Chase Edmonds scored, you're kind of thinking, okay, this is going to seal the deal. And that wasn't the case, unfortunately. They gave up a couple big plays, but they're so banged up in there, and then you have the Patrick. We keep talking about that, but it's true. When, and Robert Alford, obviously is out for an extended period, but when Patrick Peterson comes back, as these other guys get more experience, I think you're just going to see that group get better.
Toward the end of the game, you had Jalen Thompson, Deontay Thompson, Byron Murphy all in the game together. All those guys are rookies who this time last year they were in college, so I think there's going to be growing pains with those guys, but overall, like you said, Lisa, the fact that the Bengals came back and tied it, but the Cardinals were able to answer, because if you play that well and lose that game, that would have been a gut punch for this team. But they did pull it out. Kyler Murray showing that even in the fourth quarter of a close game, he doesn't get rattled, which I don't think surprises any of us. He's the coolest guy here. Nothing ever affects him, but he made some big throws and some big runs down the stretch.
Yeah, it was a 2-minute drill.
Yep.
He had the ball, and you can imagine at that point for any quarterback, okay, we played a solid game. The offense was just clicking immensely in the run game. So you're in that situation, it's tied up, and he has the ball, and just the way that he orchestrated that final drive to set up the game-winning field goal. I mean, that just showed everything that Kyler Murray is capable of doing and leading this offense.
Yeah, no question. And, I think it goes back to they found a way to win the game, especially being an emotional week here, losing Mr. B. And, it was pretty touching at the end of the game, and we're going to talk about it later, but Michael getting that game ball. And I think that it really resonated the fact that they did have adversity in this game, but they found a way to win. They found a way to make it happen, and it was really a meaningful win in that way.
All right, well, let's talk about our players, the rise and shine players of this game that stood out.
All those things.
All the things in this victory. So
who goes first?
Odegard?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I got the guy probably a lot of the viewers are picking.
Yes.
Kyler Murray, quarterback, Arizona Cardinals. I mean, passing the ball, he was really good. He made a lot of good decisions, didn't turn the ball over. He didn't like dominate through the air, but he didn't force anything. He wasn't throwing into double coverage, and what he really did in this game was use his legs and really attacking the Bengals when either way, if it was a design run or a scramble. 10 carries for 93 yards. He's up to 7.4 yards per carry on the season, which would lead the NFL in rushing if he qualified. He's only like 4 carries short of being on that leaderboard, but he is such a dual threat weapon. We all saw it coming out of college, but the fact that he's showing it in the NFL, because the question was always, is the speed of the NFL going to make him less effective? And through the first 5 games, that doesn't seem to be the case. And now mentally, he's really coming along. So I think the best game overall we've seen from Kyler Murray here in Week 5.
Definitely. Cliff talked about him just showing improvement, being smarter with his plays, and knowing when the party's over and to throw the ball out. So that was really what stood out to him. Obviously, 93 yards on the ground. So he was my original pick, but I wanted some diversity here. So let's go to you first.
So a fun fact before we get into mine for Kyler. He's the first player in NFL history with 1,300 passing yards, 200 rushing yards in their first 5 games. So, and he's also the only quarterback in 2019 to have those stats. So, it's incredible. Just like you said, Kyle. You know, it doesn't seem like the moment's too big for him.
Yeah.
He's, nothing seems to faze him or bother him with some of these throws, and he just seems to keep growing from here. But not to take away from my Rise and Shine player of the game.
Let me guess.
So I'm going back with my boy, Zane Gonzalez.
Came through.
So
Yeah, he did.
shaky game last week. Started off with a miss this week, and I was like, oh, come on, man. But
You're going to have to write somebody else down.
I know. I had the card already ready, but it came through in the clutch again. Not a lot of long shots or difficult shots, but he misses one. It's a completely different game. And then stepping up with 2 seconds on the clock and getting the W for us. He's definitely someone that's.
Anytime it's a pressure situation like that, you never know. So he came through.
Jody.
Love it. Okay, so we kind of talked about the run game. Look, David Johnson was great too. I mean, catching the ball as well. David Johnson actually had more yards than my pick, which is Chase Edmonds. But Chase Edmonds ran the ball with a lot of determination, did have that 37-yard touchdown, and I think he kind of added another dimension. I think we're going to see this going forward where it not only was more balance with the game plan, they ran actually more than they passed, and of course Kyler mixed into that kind of throws an interesting element into that, but more balance even within the guys rushing the ball. You've got David Johnson, you've got Chase Edmonds, you got Kyler keeping it. So, but I think Chase is a guy that, in his second year, I think he's going to blossom and really be a bigger and bigger part of the offense.
Yeah, I love to watch him. He's such a dynamic runner. Okay, mine's a little outside the box, but given the fact that he first came back with the Arizona Cardinals, I'm going to choose Pharoh Cooper.
Good choice.
And just he had a heck of a game, and it was overshadowed obviously by the greatness with Kyler Murray and the run game and everything like that. But just to come back, and Kyler has experience throwing to him. He knows the playbook, and he added an element to the return game too, if it wasn't for some penalties, obviously. But just him to step up and missing Christian Kirk and having him as a go-to, I felt like he rose to the occasion yesterday.
A great diving catch.
Yeah,
down
24-yard
near the goal
diving
line.
catch.
You thought when that ball was in the air, it's like, a little bit too far.
Yes.
And Pharoh caught up to it and made a catch. Without Christian Kirk, you needed guys to step up, and it was definitely a group effort. Fitz had the most receiving yards, and David was up there, but across the board, a lot of different guys stepped up. Charles Clay, Keyshawn Johnson, Trent Sherfield. You needed that balance.
Yeah. One thing on the Chase Edmonds run, Fitz had a nice block. It's just execution in general. Pharoh made that great catch. Keyshawn should have made a catch earlier. I mean, and then you saw the penalties. I think the Cardinals had 96 yards in penalties. A lot of, the Rodney Gunter one hurt. The block in the back. So it's execution. When you see guys step up and make those plays, make it happen, you just need more of that. The percentages of that higher, and then the mistakes less. So I think we're still seeing this team. They found a way to win despite some of those other issues, but they need to limit those mistakes.
Yeah, and as Hicks said, they're still finding their identity. So it's going to take some time, but we saw a lot of positives. The negatives, obviously, in the red zone. 146, I believe, was the final stat. Yeah,
they were getting down there.
Yeah,
more
they
than
do.
they did
They
in
do.
previous weeks.
And I loved your tweet. You said, what was it, the 37-yarder? You're like, you don't have to.
The red zone issues don't matter if you just score from 37 yards out every time. But I mean, that was obviously a joke, but also like the explosive plays are what's important to me. And I think the red zone percentages are going to even out as the season goes on because you have a mobile quarterback in Kyler Murray who showed what he can do close to the goal line with that bootleg touchdown. David Johnson is a big back who can get the 1 yard when you need it and also go out and catch the ball. So I think they have the right personnel to get better in the red zone, and they've obviously missed on some chances, but like Jody's saying, you got down there consistently, and that's the big thing to me is last year the Cardinals' red zone percentage was actually pretty good. They scored when they got in the red zone, but they hardly ever got there. So the fact that they're moving the ball is, to me, the most important thing, and in this game they really showed it.
Is that your jam, Kyle?
That's my jam. And like Jody was saying, the fact that the run game was so impressive, and now it feels like if a defense wants to take away the deep ball or something specific by the Cardinals, they're okay with, okay, if you want us to run, we'll go ahead and run it. And we feel like David Johnson and Chase Edmonds and Kyler Murray can really gash you on the ground. To me, the fact that you can kind of pick your poison offensively, that's so important, and the Cardinals are showing that, being able to throw the ball and run it.
Yeah, that's my jam. I mean, they're playing two safeties high, so they're like, all right, we're going to run the ball, and it was the air raid, but it was really the run raid. Is that corny?
Nice.
Okay, cool. Got it. Ground raid. It works. Just seeing them be so effective running the ball, you know, they knew that it was going to be eliminated in the air, so they just went down and ran it.
Well, it's crazy that, you know, we've been around it for a lot longer than people are seeing, but it's still only 5 games into not only Kyler's career, but Coach Kingsbury. So you're going to see those growing pains, but it's nice to see that every game it's kind of another building block towards something special. So it's exciting to see the growth each game and just the calmness under pressure. And like I said before, it doesn't seem as if, you know, any moment is too big for Kyler or for Coach Kingsbury.
Yeah. Obviously, the win just meant a lot because it was the first one, but we saw across the league, we talked earlier about the loss of Mr. B and just the moment of silence. They did one before the game. Just across the league, every game I saw had a moment of silence for him. So it was really cool just this past week with heavy hearts, just hearing the stories and memories that people have. Do you have them? You've been with the organization for quite some time. Do you have a memory that sticks out to you most?
When I came to town in 2000, so a lot of times, you know, we still, even now, we congregate in the media room here, and Mr. B would come in, and he would talk a lot about his days in the Navy. He would talk a lot about just football, though. I mean, mainly, and that's the thing that stands out about yesterday is that he was on everyone's mind, but football, he was a man of faith, family, and football, but nothing like a win, right? I mean, there's nothing like a win, especially when you've been tied to a team for, I think, what was it, 8 decades since being a ball boy. And but yeah, just his presence was always special. And then seeing him, I think a lot of guys, I know Bertrand Berry and I talked about, you know, in 08, just winning the NFC and going to the Super Bowl, and that, I mean, it was a really special moment. You could see how much it meant to him, and so that stands out as well. But even just the daily interactions, you know, a special man who was private, but you know, you could tell how much he cared about this franchise and everyone around it. This team had always had great character, always a great reputation for giving back to the community, and those things were really important to him, and they still are to the family.
Yeah, and you could tell how much it meant to Michael too to get the win for his dad. So how about a toast to Mr. B, everything he did for this organization, this community, and the Cardinals getting the win for him yesterday. So we'll actually leave you with the locker room speech after yesterday's win. Cliff Kingsbury and Michael Bidwill giving out game balls.
Great job. Listen, you can see what we can be, right? We clean everything up. Don't put any limits on what we can do moving forward. It's a great job finding a way to win. All right, we'll get it cleaned up and get better next week. Coming back home, we got to represent at home. All right, let me see a ball. Schwim. Coach. Had a tough loss, right, this week for the Cardinals family. All right, so I knew we were going to get this one done for you and your family. Congratulations. It means the world to us.
Thank you all. You guys, this means a lot. Really do appreciate it. And Coach, I've got one for you. Your first win. Dad always said, it's never easy. You did it on the road. Congratulations.